when you say that you can have the image in your head when you were watching PDA, so you feel, you almost transference and you can feel part of it in your head. And it's completely right. It's about fantasy, right? Even if you are in a very happy relationship, you also want to watch that post, right? It's almost like amplifying your happiness. And regarding the point of the influence from Alain de Botton, I actually personally really learned about expectation of relationship from him. So when you said that, what kind of image you have in terms of relationship, it's never too bright, never too bleak, somewhere in between.
Yeah.
For me personally, I think it's about changes of expectation in real life too, in terms of our generation, our social circumstances. So I actually listened to this podcast interviewing Esther Perel. You know what, like why current marriage is not lasting as long as before is because in old times, the society, the social circle is a familiar circle.
Okay.
So you live in this little village, very few people live there. You know everybody knows you. And so you have a very close tie with the community members in your community. So a lot of different roles in your life are fulfilled by different people. So you don't have to get everything from one person.
Well, do you have an example? Like, what do you mean?
In old times, in the old village, you could, let's say, I have friends who I go hiking together with.
Okay.
And I have friends who I go fishing together. I have friends,
okay.
I have people who can listen to me when I'm heartbroken.
Yeah.
I have people who can take care of me when I'm sick. It doesn't have to be one person, right? But in modern life, because yes, the scope of the city is expanding and urbanization, there are a lot more people in a society, but we become a much more stranger society.
Yeah.
Like you barely know your neighbors. And thanks to pandemic, I actually know more of my neighbors than I've ever done without pandemic, right? So in modern society, we place a huge expectation on our partner to expect that person to fulfill every part of our needs. And in a way, we also place our own emotions under their responsibility. If you really love me, if we're really compatible, you shouldn't have pissed me off. But in the real world, it's like we're not perfect. First of all, we cannot read minds.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Second of all, so we cannot assume, back to the big question of assumption, we cannot assume that we are completely understood by other people without communication, clear communication. Second of all, also about the unrealistic expectation of how your partner should be.
Yeah.
So that's what you have mentioned, romanticism. Why would we marry the wrong person? It's not because we are so unlucky or dumb that we always pick the wrong person. Genuinely, just because we are not perfect.
I guess it's that kind of unrealistic expectation has been standardized in our society, where apparently that one person seems to fit all of the bills that is something that you require in your life.
Yeah.
And once you have that person, all your problems are somehow solved.
Yeah.
And that does feel like it at the first 3 months.
Correct.
Unfortunately, it does, when it probably shouldn't. And there's a funny thing that I do, and I realize I do that quite often, even in early days of a relationship, which is, I think, wow, I'm so happy now. How painful it must be
To be alone.
for this to go away.
Yeah.
And there is an interesting philosophical debate that I remember I did at university, which is the experience machine, which is if your brain is being plugged into an experience machine, experiencing everything that you're having, experiencing, feeling a moment, what happens if we make that experience very, very happy, and would you be happier? And I always thought that if the happy machine made us happier, that then gets normalized. It will just become our baseline.
Yeah.
And then the normal will just become unhappy. And, the unhappy will be really, really unhappy.
Yeah.
And I guess life is sort of this cyclical loop type of experience where you can only feel the relative pain because you've experienced some relative happiness.
Yeah.
And it's an influx of the two, the infusion of the two that makes you experience, the extreme happiness, extreme joy, and extreme sadness.
Yeah.
And the important thing I think for myself is to ground myself in those experiences to understand, okay, this is just probably a momentary thing that it will wither away just as, the better days will come. I mean, that sort of goes into a meditation mind that is a separate topic. But I think it comes down to why I don't like PDA as much is it's a reflection of a snippet of what everyday life is.
Yeah.
You can aspire it,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's something that you should always be chasing after.